everyone, welcome back. It's Miss A. Again, as always, I hope that you are enjoying your break. I know that I am. Let's jump right into it. So the structure of this is always that I'm going to go through the answers first, and then I'm going to dive into the instructional part and kind of explain my process and how I got my answers. So in the last video, we looked at 9 through 16. This process up here that we used for 9 through 12 is going to be needed for both of these questions that I'm going to only look at for this video. The rest of this is going to be on one single video, so you have one more video coming from me. These ones, I believe, are going to be relatively fast, and most of us are just going to need answers versus more of a step-by-step process afterwards. So this is the last longish video that you'll get from me. So that should make your guys' lives a little bit easier. Okay, so looking at this one, it says, estimate the location of the square root of 78 to the nearest tenths and mark with a point on the number line where it should be. Add the last part. So what I got was 8.8, or roughly somewhere in between 8.7 and 8.9, but definitely not 9 and definitely not 8.5. So I'm going to put it right here. This is where the square root of 78 is going to be. Okay, and then your answers for this one is going to be 2 pi. Then this one is going to be 2 times the square root of 14 and 3 times the square root of 10. Okay, so let's go over to this one and look at the very first one and look at the process that I did. So as I said in the very beginning, you are going to need this process that we used up here through 9 through 16, where we find those two perfect squares. Our imperfect square is in between. All right, so we have the square root of 78. The next perfect square just after that would be 81, and the perfect square below it is going to be 64. So that means that we don't even need to look at any of this because the square root of 78 is going to lie somewhere between 8 and 9. Then again, as I said in my last video of 9 through 16, your next step was going to decide, okay, which of these perfect squares is my imperfect square closest to? So 78 is closer to 81. Therefore, my estimate is going to be relatively close to 9, but not exactly on 9. So I did about 7.8 or 8.7, which is a great estimate. What you can do there is you can go, and the process with this is you're going to need a calculator for it or do it but with your long wise of multiplying. So you'd have 8.7 times 8.7 and see how close to 78 you can get. So 8.7 times 8.7 is, if you don't have a calculator at home, you can always use Google. So 8.7 times 8.7 gives me 75.69. So that's not quite close enough to 78, so let's bump it up a little bit. So 8.8. Clear that. 8.8 times 8.8 gives me 77.44. Okay, getting pretty close. What about 8.9? See how well that does. 8.9 times 8.9. 79.21. Now, this one is too large, so we have to go with the previous answer, 8.8. So that's the process of how you would do that. Normally in class, we were actually rounding to the hundredths place, which actually allows us to have a more of an accurate answer. But for these questions, it just wants us to approximate to the nearest tenths. Okay, so much like the other one that we just did, this one is going to have the same process. But this one, you're kind of working backwards because this one is kind of combining what we did in 13 through 16 and what we did in 9 through 12, because the answers that were given are in simplest or factored form. So what you can do here is looking at 2 times the square root of 14 and looking at this number outside of the radical going, okay, what perfect square gives you a root of 2, 4. So that means that 4 times 14, or the square root of 4 times 14, is going to be equal to 2 times the square root of 14, which is the square root of 56. Now, that's when I'm going to use the process that I did over here to help me estimate where it's going to be on the number line. I need those two perfect squares. So I have the square root of 49, which is 7. In between this is going to be the square root of 56, and then the square root of 64. Now, 56 is closer to 64, so you're going to have a 7 point something. And looking at my number line, I really don't have to get very exact on this. I don't even have to really round. I don't even have to completely do this process to give an estimate, because of these little choices that were given, this is the only one that is in between 7 and 8. This is in between 7 and 8. So I just repeat that process for 3 times the square root of 10 and 2 times pi. So let's look at 3 times the square root of 10. 3 times the square root of 10. Okay, what perfect square gives me the root of 3? 9. So 9 times 10 gives me the square root of 90. Perfect squares, this imperfect square is in between. You have the square root of 81, square root of 90, and the square root of 100. Now you have 9 and 10. So the square root of 90 is going to be in between 9 and 10. This box is the only one that gives me an estimate between 9 and 10. So it goes there. And for the and for this last one, by default, it goes here. But let's go over this. Let's figure out why that is. We have 2 times, we can estimate pi by saying 3.14. This will approximate you of 6.7, roughly there, maybe 6.8. You can use a calculator to do that, or you can do it longhand. That's fine too. So yep, it's the only one that would give you anywhere between 6 and 7. So there you go. Yep, so this is a short one. These are the only 2 questions this video is going to go over. And yeah, so the next one is going to be over 17 all the way through 28. Okay, well, that is it. Thank you all so much. Again, this is the first time I'm going to say this, so I'm sorry if it sounds really weird, but you should subscribe to my channel so you never ever miss a math tip with Miss A again. Nailed it. And hit the little notification bell, because I'm cool and you want to know when I post stuff so you can get an A in my class. That would be great. All right, see you later. Bye.